One, two, three, four.
I love all my friends. I love all my friends. I'm parking the car, turning off the lights.
Hello, you're listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But Skylight is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep Skylight alive, please visit our website at skylightbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the fourth episode of the Handsell. 4 weeks in a row. Can't believe we're here. I'm the podcast producer and host, Mick, Kowaleski, joined again by my co-host.
Maddie, Gobbo, events manager.
And we are both joined once again by our guest for this episode, our very special guest.
Sydney Lopez, bookseller at Skylight Books.
Hi,
Awesome.
Sydney.
Howdy, y'all.
Well, we've got another really great episode in store for you today. But before we get to that, there's been a bit of news about the state of businesses in the state of California. Maddie, do you want to talk to us about that and how it impacts Skylight?
Yes. So yesterday, that was Wednesday, May 6th, Eric Garcetti issued orders that certain retail businesses can start reopening for curbside pickup this weekend. And among those businesses, he included bookstores. So a lot of you are probably wondering if Skylight's going to be open this weekend. I will tell you right now, we are not going to be open this weekend. We probably will not be open next week either. It's going to take us a little while. So if you're kind of anxiously awaiting, the day our doors reopen, just be patient because we need to do a lot of things in order to ensure that our staff are well taken care of. That's our number one priority. So once we start thinking about reopening, we're going to first have to rearrange the store so that staff don't come into contact with each other. We're going to have to come up with a good curbside pickup procedure. And we're going to also have to do a lot of kind of back-end maintenance of our inventory because things are really out of whack right now with all of our kind of direct-to-home ordering that we've been doing for the past month and a half. So all that is to say, we are doing our best to get back on our feet so that you can come and get your books from us again as before, but we're not going to rush it because we do really want to make sure that we're doing this safely. And we also want you to stay safe. So just please be patient. We'll post any updates as they happen on our social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter. So just keep following those. And likely we'll have another update from Mary on next week's Handsell episode with more details. So stay tuned for that. And I'd like to sort of think about this in a larger context. It is interesting that Garcetti and Newsom both chose bookstores by name as one of the retail businesses that were allowed to be opened this weekend. And I think it has a lot to do with a certain campaign that's been going on in the publishing industry and specifically in a special issue of Publishers Weekly, which is the Books Are Essential campaign. And the reason I bring this up is because that campaign is the focus of this week's conversation, which Sydney hosted. Sydney, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I saw the Publishers Weekly piece. It was a pretty short piece, and a similar piece in the New York Times. And I thought it was a pretty interesting take on books and bookstores during, the time of COVID-19. And I had a lot of feelings about it, and I wanted to have conversations with booksellers at different bookstores, independent bookstores in LA. So I reached out to some friends I have at Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena, and we just got together to, discuss what it means when people say bookstores are essential businesses, and sort of, what's the word? I can't think of it, but sort of what happens when people conflate the essential nature of books with, essentializing a business during a pandemic, and the health risks that can pose, and the way we value specific people working in this time. And I really learned a lot from Joseph and Sara, and I was really fortunate to be a part of that conversation. With that said, what we discussed are, of course, our own views. They are not reflective necessarily of the views of Skylight Books or Vroman's bookstore. So yeah, when you listen to the conversation, I would just advise you remember that it's, the opinions of three booksellers. We're known to have a lot of them. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any thoughts, tweet us, DM us, owl post, whatever works.
Awesome. So I guess we can get to, I think, less terribly important and serious things. Namely, what are you guys reading lately?
I just finished a first novel called Vagabond by Anna
Ooh.
Dorn. It's out on Unnamed Press in May, I think yesterday, 2 days ago. Very fresh take. Fantastic LA novel. So crispy, very hip. It's about a woman who is becoming dissatisfied with her career as kind of a bedroom lawyer, and who decides to take the leap into becoming a rap artist. And she gets kind of she gets involved with this crew of true LA weirdos, and her life swiftly spirals out of control. The writing is so sharp and funny. It did remind me a lot of both Ottessa Moshfegh and Anne Garetta's novel Sphinx, if you guys have read that. Really just great, like, contemporary LA writing. If you're a fan of Vanderpump Rules or Real Housewives, you will love this book. It's also very smart, I should say. It's not just delicious trash. It's also quite deep. And we're actually doing a virtual event with Anna Dorn on May 23rd. So we hope to see you all there.
Heck yeah. Sid, what about you?
I am reading On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, a little book by Ocean Vuong. Don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's actually one of the biggest events we ever had at Skylight. And listening to him speak was a lovely experience. And I finally got around to actually reading my copy, and it's taken me like a day. And I, of course, am just like floored. It's exceptional. So good. Pretty sad to read during quarantine. There's some moments, but it's really good. I highly recommend it.
Speaking of really big events in the store, I want to do a little plug for the Sally Rooney event that we had for normal people, which I don't know if you guys have heard, has been turned into a little bit of a show. Is it on Hulu?
It's on Hulu.
Hulu show, baby. So go and check that out if you're
Sponsored by
interested
Hulu.
in that. Sponsored by Hulu.
Just kidding, we're not. Hulu has given us no money.
I wish. Can we get some of
We're
that?
open to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, guys. Yeah, we had a huge event. Were you directing events at that time, Maddie?
No, that was before my time.
Okay, yeah, it was a massive event with Sally Rooney. Who
I was on the floor for that event.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Check out the podcast. We have the audio of it available as a podcast, and you'll be able to find a link to it via social media shortly. So
Sweet. Sounds
and what
good.
are you reading? What are you reading, Mickey?
And then I've almost finished with The Last Samurai. I'm still working on it. Still working on it.
It's a big book.
Almost there. Yeah, I'm like 80 pages left. It's not just like big. It's just like very dense. Like, and just trying to absorb all the information is a lot. So since I'm like seeing the finish line, I've started reading Yajasi's newest book. I got the galley. It's Transcendent Kingdom. And if I like it half as much as I liked Homegoing, I will be having a blast. So might do a little book recommendation for that later on this episode. We'll see.
Cool. That
Yeah.
sounds great. I'll keep my eye out for it when it comes out. Or you can loan me the galley, either way.
I'll give you the galley. Yeah, I'll just give you the galley, Sid. We're friends. We can do that. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining me today. Sid, we'll hear from you later on. And
Aye, aye.
enjoy the rest of the show, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Hey everyone, it's Mick again, here with a book recommendation. I know I just talked about how I was reading Yajasi's upcoming book, Transcendent Kingdom, which I believe is out in July, so you can't get that, but let me tell you, I'm not very far, but I highly recommend pre-ordering it. But the book I want to recommend to you today, the one that you can order now, is her debut novel, Homegoing. It's one of the best books I've read in the past few years. It tells the tale of two sisters born in Ghana, one of whom gets sold to a slaver. The other one stays in Ghana, and it tracks each sister's lineage through time. So each chapter is devoted to a descendant of one of the sisters. I gotta tell you, I couldn't put it down. I had to actually consciously separate my reading sessions into bite-sized chunks so I could experience the novel when I want. I didn't want to run out immediately. So if you can order Homegoing from your nearest indie bookstore, you will not be disappointed, I can tell you that. Now, I'm going to send it to Sydney for the main event. Enjoy that.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Handsell. Sydney here, bookseller at Skylight Books. Today I'm joined by Joseph Ocon, a bookseller at Vroman's Bookstore.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
And Sarah Stringer, another bookseller from Vroman's Bookstore.
Hey, everybody.
How you guys doing?
Totally fine.
As good as to be expected.
Better than ever.
Super great here in my blanket fort.
Yeah, excellent blanket fort and excellent. Yeah, I love it. I love it all. So I was hoping to have a conversation. Obviously, booksellers and independent bookstores are being profoundly impacted by COVID-19 and the closure of stores as a social distancing and public health measure. And there's been a lot of conversation around books and their role in culture at this specific moment in time. And a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, Publishers Weekly posted this bit that was sort of a spin-off or a riff-off of the Barnes & Noble CEO saying that the industry will be able to survive if books are deemed essential. And I had a lot of thoughts when I first heard that. So the idea that businesses can weather COVID-19 by deeming books essential, do you agree, disagree, have any, initial reactions that you felt strongly about?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
My first thought is that I just don't really care about whether bookstores can weather COVID-19 by deeming books essential, because it's not really, to my mind, the question that should be asked about this moment. Which is not to say that I think all bookstores should close or whatever, but only to point out that like asking whether bookstores should be deemed essential, and so therefore like there are so many questions that are unasked in that question, like who is going to be putting their health at risk to staff these bookstores? Who are these bookstores going to be selling to? Like there's a whole underside to saying like, oh, we need to save this industry, so let's just go back to business as usual. And I think that one of the things that this moment has like really made clear is that in every business, even a small business like an independent bookstore, the burden of labor is unevenly distributed, and there are people who are always going to be more at risk, and people who can say, like the CEO of Barnes and Noble, well, let's just open them all up again because that guy's not going into work.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter to him, he's just going to see the profits on the other side.
Yeah.
But like the people who actually are going to be selling those books, whether it's, you know, curbside pickup or like actually having folks come into stores, whatever it may be, like those are the people who are going to get sick. And as we've seen from every other essential business, people die. Like they're basically saying like, well, the book industry is worth booksellers, warehouse workers dying, so that what, like CEOs can like have a little bit of extra money off the top. Like it's unconvincing to me because it's not going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit the people who don't have to go to work and get to make more money anyway. Like it doesn't benefit a bookseller to make minimum wage and die.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think I really agree when you say that it's the wrong question to be asking. I feel like that's a really good way to put it, because it's exactly that. It's a really dangerous framework because it frames it in such a way that we have to make a choice between like it's like this false divide, like books or no books, and it's like that's not the question, that's not what we're proposing. And like you said, the real question is like books at what expense, you know? Yeah. And like I similarly agree, like I love bookstores. I do not think they should be closed. I'm not like woo, close bookstores. I just think that it's dangerous. And I think the most dangerous thing to me, and also the thing that gets under my skin the most, is the sort of conflation of like deeming books essential and books as essential to culture. And I know that's like maybe doesn't make a ton of sense when I say it out loud, but it's like, of course books are essential to culture and conversation. I don't think anyone's arguing against that. But I feel like the people that are advocating for this are trying to be like, books are so essential, we can't give up books. But it's like, no, they are essential, but deeming them essential at this moment in history and time is very dangerous, you know, and to sort of conflate the two is just extremely irresponsible.
Well, it's not even saying that books are essential. It's saying that the book industry is essential.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. They're not saying that books are essential. They're saying like, oh, making money off of the sale of books should be an essential service. And so I think that's like you said, there's a conflation happening where something that a lot of people can agree on, which is that books are important and we like books, that's why we work in this industry, is allowing people to make the argument that they should be allowed to run a business whenever they want, which is a totally different argument. Like, how are books actually essential in this moment where people are, you know, like, are they? No. It's not food, it's not medicine, you know. Which is fine. But that's getting lost, like you said, in the slippage from like books are essential to like, let me stay open right now.
What do you think, Sarah?
I mean, I definitely agree with what both of you were saying. Those were points I'd bring up. Initially, I thought it was pointless and totally reckless and irresponsible to even bring that up and start a stupid hashtag for it. Forgive me, but and it also detracts from actual like essential businesses and essential workers, of which I know many. I live with two of them. I mean, you know, I definitely wouldn't feel comfortable going into work if I was asked to, but nobody's asking actual book workers or sellers about
Yeah.
how it would impact them, because they don't care, because it's just about making a profit, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just like it was before. And I definitely don't like, it makes me itchy to think that there's this push to go back to operating these businesses like they were before, because there's huge issues there, that I would hope now can be addressed in some way. And it's not even books, like the physical material object, that are essential, right? It's the ideas, or it's the exchange of ideas, or it's a community gathering space, right? And you don't really need the object to be able to do that. Also, why not just do like PDFs or whatever else, ebooks, things like that, if you really want to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I've read some, sorry, I'm getting everywhere, but I've read some stuff where book sales are actually up in the last 2 months, because everyone's stuck at home, and there's been such a push to read books as a way to pass your time. So I don't, they're fine. They have ways around it, and it's just already, hard to find anything about how the workers at the warehouses are being affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I tried to look up some stuff about, Ingram, and I couldn't find anything other than, some general statement about how they're, proceeding safely and following all the measures. But
Mm-hmm.
it just irritates me, that it's just people who write about books or review books, and not, the actual workers.
Yeah.
Sales. I can't find anything at all about that,
Mm-hmm.
other than, just like union busting or massive layoffs and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
No, go ahead, Joseph.
I was just gonna say, the other thing, and this is something that you were bringing up, Sarah, which is like, the book industry is actually not closed. Like, Ingram warehouse workers are shipping books all over the country.
Yeah.
And independent bookstores are making money off of those sales. They're not making as much money as they would make if they were shipping books directly from the store, because they get different discounts. But there's already so much erasure about like what the conditions for this industry are, that to even ask like, well, we need to, like, can we reopen, the book industry, is already ignoring all of the ways in which the book industry is already open and selling stuff. It makes it seem like they really shut the whole thing down, which is just like not the truth. Like, there are still people who are going to work. They're just not people who I think the book industry considers part of the book industry. And that's warehouse workers. The book industry as it is wouldn't exist without warehouse workers. It's impossible to imagine. Like, as a business, we depend on them. And so, like, to act as if they're not part of that industry because they're not a bookseller or like working in a bookstore or for a publishing company, is to ignore like basically what, like, how this industry actually operates, which is by like outsourcing like the most like physical labor outside of the industry, and then acting like the only people in the industry are like publishers and like independent bookstore CEOs.
Yeah, I think there's a definite division of labor that, sort of intentionally hides like the more unsavory aspects, like exactly like you said, like the industry itself is not completely shut down. There's these workarounds that are dependent on people that are invisible regardless of COVID,
Yeah, exactly.
And I read I believe it was you that sent me a really interesting Twitter thread. So their name's Meredith Hanlon.
Yeah, and they're on Twitter at Meredeathcore, so MERE Deathcore.
That is wonderful.
But yeah, they are a bookseller and poet from the Bay Area. Well, that living in the Bay Area now. But yeah, anyways.
There was something that stood out to me. They said, what is it? Sorry. They referred to the publishing and book selling and books. I'm kind of conflating them all right now for the sake of simplicity, but they said it is an insidious industry that encourages the mentality of selflessness for dead paper. And that really stuck with me because, there's like those layers of sacrifice that workers at various levels in the industry are sort of implicitly asked to make, and it's like, a lot of booksellers make minimum wage and don't have health care and are capped at, 29 or whatever hours so that they don't have 30 and are not, required to be given health care. And it's sort of like, we're almost asked to like martyr ourselves in the name of this like public good that is book selling, that are bookstores, that are, bookstores are this space for the community. They're this space for ideas. But as you and Sarah very clearly outlined, there are alternative models. There are ways to create community. There are ways to share ideas that don't depend on invisible and dangerous labor. And I don't know, when they said that, when Meredith said that really stood out to me as a really, it's clear they're a poet because that's a really beautiful way of putting it, but I really enjoyed that.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think you are right to point out that this is something that predates COVID. And that part of the reason I think that the Publishers Weekly article and some of the other writing that's been coming out of the industry about how essential books are rubs us all the wrong way is because it reminds us of the ways that we've already been asked to make, how we've already been asked to make, quote unquote sacrifices for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said before, it was like books are essential. It was like books are a community good. Like you should be grateful to work in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like therefore, do work for free or work for minimum wage or work part-time with no. It's like you said. So it's like this is also not new to COVID. It's something that was a problem in the industry before because the industry has depended on this type of labor for a long time and has justified using this type of labor with the same reasons that are now coming out specifically to justify putting people in even more danger right now.
Yeah, I also think it's something that's kind of like unfortunately specific to small independent businesses across the board is that the precarity of a small business can always be used to like deny workers like basic rights and more livable wages, because it's like, exactly like you should be fortunate to work in this space that affords you access to X, Y, and Z, whether it's cultural capital or, like being around books and sort of this like romanticized idea of like, what book selling is. But yeah, it's just essentially, I lost my train of thought a tiny bit there, but this idea that we as booksellers should revel more in like the culture of bookstores and be grateful for that as opposed to like asking for like material tangible benefits, I suppose. But yeah, that's that's a much larger conversation, but I think that's why when you brought those tweets to my attention, both of you, and then I saw this Publishers Weekly thing and I saw the piece in the New York Times, it was very much these, arbiters of culture from on up high being like, we must be noble and books must be essential. And it's kind of like, yeah, but who's actually going to carry on this work that makes you feel so good about yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was frustrating, and yeah, you two were the first people that I wanted to get thoughts from because I feel like you guys always have really great things to say on these kinds of topics, so I appreciate it.
No, I definitely appreciate having the forum for this because there's not really much of one.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it totally is frustrating and enraging that there's this like perception that bookselling and independent bookstores are noble and virtuous, and you know, when they just, I don't know, they operate like any other like corporate business for the most part, and they can get away with it because, you know, of how the public perceives them and how we're told to feel about books.
Yeah, no.
That's what, yeah. So when things come out like that, it's just totally tone deaf and totally pointless.
Mhm.
That it just kind of don't even really care what they have to say anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where like this alleged leverage is now.
Mhm.
Like, what can we do with this now that not necessarily these certain practices or whatever weren't exposed before? I just think it's probably maybe more people are looking now.
Mhm.
So what can we do with that moving forward? Do you know what I mean? So I don't really care about the business or the property or the material objects or anything like that, but what can we do as workers to move forward to, you know, better protect ourselves and our communities,
Yeah.
you know, to make them actually like live up, the stores, make, make sure they live up to that, you know, responsibility and are held accountable, because, you know, they sort of just at this point kind of operate with impunity, like nobody's calling them out
Mhm.
because they're indies.
Yeah. There's no real like safety net or mechanism in place.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, I mean, there obviously is a truth to the idea that, you know, we've entered this industry and we've become booksellers because at the baseline, books are important to us. They're meaningful. We think this is a worthwhile endeavor, and it would be nice to be encouraged to make this a more livable reality for the people who sell books. It would be nice for us to be solution oriented and work together. And, you know, booksellers really are the lifeblood of of bookstores. And I think they're like a pretty important link in that chain from author to reader, you know. And I think recognition of that, and valuing the bookseller, and valuing the people who are more invisible, the people in the warehouses, you know, at Ingram, sending our books from Oregon or Tennessee or wherever, you know, how to voice to, you know, it's a lot like a restaurant. You've got your front of house, you've got your back of house. People don't really think about the back of house, and then you have your managerial class, and it's a whole different thing. But it's, to me, it's really similar to this whole essential workers are heroes hashtag campaign going on, where it's like they're amazing, they're doing their jobs and they're risking their lives for doing their jobs, but they shouldn't have to be. And if they are, and that's their decision, then, you know, why aren't they making a wage that reflects that? And I think we're just totally missing the point entirely when we just sort of turn all these people into heroes instead of just seeing them as human beings that have needs and deserve not to die for needing a job and having to pay their rent and bills like the rest of us.
Pay them more.
Yeah.
I don't know, regulate the hours a little more. I don't know, it's just something people can say or apply a hashtag to feel better about themselves without actually doing anything to help anyone ever. That's my issue with.
Is virtue washing a thing? Is that a phrase that's ever been used? Virtue washing, like whitewashing or greenwashing or washing.
I like it. Yeah.
We'll just call it virtue washing. Like, thanks to all our heroes, but we're not really going to take care of you.
What were you doing before? Like, especially working in retail or customer service, people are incredibly rude and entitled to your time because you're paid to be there. And it's just like not enough for the, you know, conditions I work under, the people have to deal with. You know, there's nobody paying me for that emotional label. And in fact, they totally take advantage of it and use it against you in any type of service industry. So what is everybody going to be like when if ever things start to reopen, because I doubt they'll carry that mentality into it. And people are still terrible now in the midst of this. I'm here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think anybody stopped being awful to service workers just because on Twitter they're saying that they're like, thank you to everybody who's working so I can, whatever, buy groceries.
That's exactly the thing. Like, I don't know, donate to a fund. Like, shut up. You're not doing anything.
Well, I think that's about what we have time for today. But I really appreciate you both for, having this conversation and for all your ideas. You guys are wonderful. And stay safe. I appreciate you both so much.
Thanks, Sydney.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Thanks for having us.
Definitely.
Of course. All right. Talk soon. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.
I see